Welcome back to the Celtics Nation Rise account. I'm Griffin Aldridge, and we have some breaking news. The Boston Celtics have signed free agent forward Chris Boucher to a 1 year, $3.3 million deal. The Boston Celtics just signed him after some breaking news just went down like moments before. The Boston Celtics, prior to this, traded George Niang and 2 second-round future picks to the Utah Jazz in exchange for RJ Lewis. I was very confused why they did this, but they alleviated some salary in order to sign Chris Boucher. Um, and you look at this, and this is, I feel like, the main reason why the Celtics did this. George Niang was on an expiring $8.2 million contract. Um, so you look at that, the Boston Celtics just signed Chris Boucher to a $3.3 million deal. So you look at this, this is kind of a power forward slash center. He could play the center position too. That you're going to see him play the power forward and potentially be the starting power forward going into this season for the Boston Celtics. And this way, you get a younger one and you get a flexible one that I feel like when Jason Tatum comes back, he could play the 4 or the 5, depending on if they like him or not. Because again, this is a 1 year deal. And then you look at it. There were a lot of rumors. Do the Celtics go after a Ben Simmons? Do the Celtics go after, a Charles Bassey? There are still opportunities for that. All 15 roster spots are filled now with RJ Lewis. Now, this is my question, though. And we'll talk about this more because I have to ask Seamus this. And this is going to be very confusing because you look at this. RJ Lewis was a two-way player with the Utah Jazz. Now he's coming to the Boston Celtics. Will he stay on that two-way contract? Who knows? Who knows? But you look at this, they could still go after Charles Bassey. And I think that's very optimistic as we're getting news that he still looks to sign with the Celtics. Isaiah Wong ended up signing overseas, so he's kind of out of the picture. But I feel like Charles Bassey's still a name to look out for. So if you're a Bassey fan, don't worry. But the Boston Celtics are now getting a kind of cheaper power forward in Chris. I keep saying I'm trying to say Chris Bosh, but it's not that. It's Chris Boucher. So I do like this move for the Boston Celtics. You're alleviating $5 million in salary, and that's what the Boston Celtics wanted to do. I'm trying to look up how old Chris Bosh Boucher. I keep trying to say Bosh. How old is Chris Boucher? There we go. I'm looking it up right now because I don't think he's that much older too. So I think you're getting a younger one. So he's 6'9". So he's not really your center. He could totally play the 5 if needed, but he's 32 years old. So he's kind of on the older side, but this is a guy that you're going to use for a 1 year rental potentially till Jason Tatum comes back. And then you could kind of go the route, all right, if he succeeds with the Celtics, this might be a guy that we hang on to for a little bit. I mean, this is a guy who the Raptors have relied on time and time again. And I honestly like this move for the Boston Celtics. I like Chris Boucher. I think this is a guy that you could really rely on, especially in a year where you're getting cheaper. Offloading, obviously, George Niang, you're getting a cheaper big. And this is a guy who, if you, again, like I said, if you need to, he could play the 5 for the Celtics. So you look at that, and this is where I stand, is because I would rather give this year, obviously, a retooling year to younger guys, as in Nemias Queta, Luka Garza, Amari Williams. Even Tillman's going to get some minutes. And potentially even Charles Bassey if they still decide to sign him, depending on what he does on training camp. I think he's going to come play training camp for the Celtics. Obviously, we still have to see. But this is a guy that, if needed, he could play the 5 too. I mean, 6'9", but he's a tall, lengthy guy, and he could totally play the 5 if he needed to. But you look at this, you're getting a power forward. He could fill the shoes of Jason Tate, not fill the shoes because obviously you're not going to fill the shoes of a superstar. However, he's going to be the replacement until Jason Tatum comes back. Obviously, you're getting rid of a guy in George Niang who was making $5 million more than him. So I look at this. This is a cheap little deal that you could have for 1 year. And this is a guy who, if he could prove himself, maybe he sees potential in staying with the Celtics for later on. And again, it's all about the salary cap. The Boston Celtics this offseason have prioritized getting under that second apron, which they have done, and they got cheaper. You see George Niang, they got cheaper. They went with obviously Chris. I keep trying to think Chris Bosh, but not Chris Bosh. Chris Boucher. So you see them go with Chris Boucher, and you kind of look at that and you're like, all right, that's them alleviating from the salary. Now what do the Celtics do from here? Do they go after another player like a Ben Simmons? Can they still get a Ben Simmons? Because you still have to see with RJ Lewis if he's going to stay as a two-way player or does he fill that roster? I mean, you look at this, obviously there's still guys like Miles Norris and Max Shulga as two-way players. If someone proves themselves, they could totally cut them and move off of them and have Amari be on one of those two ways and RJ Lewis. And this might be a guy with RJ Lewis that he might as well not even play for the Celtics. I look at that and I look at that like, all right, you're getting him in return. They want to kind of test RJ Lewis out for training camp. And then you look forward, and if he doesn't prove himself, they might as well cut him, give that two-way contract to Amari, and then, boom, they'll have an open roster spot for either Charles Bassey or Ben Simmons, or if they like someone in the free agency market. Do I think this closed the door for Ben Simmons, though? I think so. I mean, there's very well a chance where the Celtics still get Ben Simmons because you could get him for not that much. But this is the smartest move I saw the Celtics doing in order to get even lower under that second apron. And can Anthony Simons still be on the move for the Celtics? Sure, that's more than possible. But this keeps that chance more likely for him to stay on the team. Because now you're just keep getting under. And yes, trading a guy either like Sam Hauser or Anthony Simons would get you a lot under the second apron. It would maybe potentially get you out of the luxury tax. I'll have to look on that one, but that would help a lot. However, this definitely gets you a lot more under the second apron. So this was a salary move. I like it. I'm not mad at it. Obviously the minivan was little lasting in Boston, but now you got a guy who could play the four as my light goes off. You got a guy who could play the four, and he's cheaper. I mean, that's what the Celtics are emphasizing this offseason is getting cheaper because they're not trying to pay the second apron. If they had a winning team, I'm sure they would. However, they do not. Like, we have to face it. The Celtics this year do not have a winning team. As I get my light back on, they do not have a winning team. They're winning, but they're not championship worthy. Now, I could eat my words. The Boston Celtics could totally go out there and prove themselves and be title contenders. However, right now, having Josh Minott, Chris Boucher, I keep trying to go Bosch. Chris Boucher, Josh Minott, Luka Garza, Tillman, Keita, like with those guys, I mean, they could sprinkle and turn into stars. Probably not Chris Boucher as he's on the older side, and kind of what you see from Chris Boucher is what you're going to get. I mean, obviously a new scenery in Boston, so who knows? But what you've seen with Toronto is what you might get with the Celtics. So I don't think this guy turns into a superstar, but I like this move. I think Franco really kind of tossed this idea out there. You could go with a Chris Boucher or someone on this program did. So I don't mind the move. And it's something where you could go cheap. And this was a possibility we saw all off season. So you look at this and it makes sense for the Celtics. And you could go into it, but The Boston Celtics are now getting a guy who's going to get them a lot under that second apron. Can the Celtics still make moves? Yes. I think the Celtics are far from over with moves. I don't know if RJ Lewis will spend even any time on this team. We'll have to see. I feel like that was just a technique to keep getting under the second apron. I mean, at this point, I feel like it would have made more sense to just trade Porzingis to the Hawks, and you might have had to give up obviously you saw that happening. I mean, the Celtics, in exchange for Porzingis, you saw them get a second round pick. However, they traded the future second round picks right back in obviously a trade to I can't think of it, Utah. And in exchange, you got RJ Lewis, who will he be on the team for the Celtics? I'm unsure. So essentially, that's what you were getting for Porzingis, because he might as well not even be on the team. So Porzingis was a lost cause for trade value because you just need to get off that contract. You needed to get under the second apron. And then obviously you had George Niang, and now you're getting Chris Boucher, who is a lot cheaper, $5 million cheaper, and he could kind of give you still the same production, just not as good as threes as George Niang. And again, I said it, go watch it on Celtics Nation Rise, the breaking news about George Niang. That's a guy that I hate to lose because I would love to have him on the bench when Tatum comes back. However, you're getting a cheap guy who knows? Who knows what can happen with Chris Boucher? I keep going and going and going. So right now it looks like Norris, Shulga, and Lewis are the two-way players, and Amari is not a two-way player as of right now. So it looks like Amari could potentially even be on the Celtics roster. It might even be a battle between Amari and Charles Bassey once we come to training camp. Who knows? Who knows? But again, the Boston Celtics have signed Chris Boucher to a 1-year, $3.3 million deal after the trade just going down with the Utah Jazz regarding, obviously, George Niang and RJ Lewis. So go check out that video out on Celtics Nation Rise right now. And again, we will give you guys a lot more coverage tomorrow when all the boys are here and we have more time to really research and do more looking into these moves for the Celtics. But again, you guys, thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you guys with the next one, and we will keep you guys updated every single time there's breaking news. So make sure to like and subscribe and turn on post notifications to be notified every time we upload. Again, this off season is going to be crazy, so make sure you turn on that post notification button because you guys need to be alerted every time we post, because again, we will be posting every time there's breaking news. So thank you guys so much. See you guys with the next one. Peace, guys.